Introductions, unless we need to do more. I think we're probably set. So you guys requested a meeting. So what would you like to talk about?
Well, I'm just interested in learning more about the process and what, what's going to happen moving forward. Food Council would like to support the food bank, of course, and whatever that means. That could mean anything, just working with partners or whatever. So, so I don't know what, I know you all had the visioning meeting that we all attended, which is great. And it appears that what the food bank will encompass is much different than what I thought was a food bank.
Okay.
Because typically what we think of as a food bank is more of a place where people bring in food from, larger sources, and then people come and get the food, which I'm sure is going to be one function. But it seemed like there was a lot of talk about a lot of other activities, so which is great. I think that's a good thing as well. And of course, I've not met Chris other than through Zoom, and so I had any chance to work with him. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't head over.
No, that's okay. That's quite all right. We'll get there one of these days, and Zoom is good.
So maybe I can kind of jump in here a little bit. Okay. So Maryland Physicians Care, as you know, has about 92% of the market share here in Garrett County. And we've actually been doing partnerships across the state, very similar around resource hubs. So I'll give you an example. I currently sit on the board of UN Power's food project down in Baltimore City, and that is a centralized hub. They started a food program in the poorest community in all of Maryland, in Southwest Baltimore. And what ended up happening is they, with some partnerships from Councilwoman Ricky Spector, were able to get an old abandoned school business. And what they've done as a result is it has a commercial kitchen. They've brought in food. They're doing delivery trays to the community. They're doing pop-up markets. They're doing cooking demonstrations. And now they're also doing diaper distribution. We have the permanent office there. They have mental health. They have the MBA that comes once a month, because they found that a lot of people were driving illegally because they can't read, and so they couldn't pass the test. I mean, they had one kid who had took it 12 times, and because of literacy issues couldn't pass it, and is now, a safe driver, insured, well, I don't know how to say it, but they also realized that kids weren't going to school because they didn't have clean clothes. So they have washer and dryers now there, so that the community can get what they need in a centralized location. So we're actually looking at Johnson Heights and Allegheny to do potentially something with UPMC. It's going to be a decentralized model, a little bit different. We are also in discussions with one of our owners in Holy Cross about doing something similar. So we've got lots of different initiatives like this that are ongoing. We have a partnership also with Community Assistance Network in Baltimore County, where they have a main food hub, and then we have these food delivery program. So we've been doing this now for a little bit, and Garrett was actually on our roadmap, and Shelley and I had some initial conversations. This all kind of happened literally probably Chris, in like 1 week's time, where Chris was like, I had a grant fall through, and maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about that, what happened with the space and how we got that space allocated.
Yeah, so we own the space that we're going to use. That was our original Head Start area in our original building. That's where over by Oakland Oil and Gas is where Community Action was first located. So that middle section that is empty, one end is Habitat for Humanity, the other end is a food program for seniors and some emergency food for our service coordination department. But there was a real need. We felt a real need for housing folks, and so we were going to create a warming center there. And then some legal stuff kind of cropped up that was just could have been problematic for us. And I just thought, if somebody's gonna potentially sue us over starting a place for people to get warm at night, I just can't take our organization into that. So late last fall, just as we were about ready to turn that into a warming center, we pulled the plug on it. And that's when it was about that time that I had a conversation with Shelley and Lorena and said, well, we now have some empty space that we're not using, and I would love to use it for something good. So that's kind of what I bring to the table for this.
And so we all took a tour of the space and we're like, this is ideal. I went back to my CEO and I said, hey, Daddy Warbucks, can I have 25? No, I'm just kidding. Can I get, some money to do this? And that's actually what started the seeding funding of the discussion. Since then, there's been discussions with the local management board, and maybe you can share a little bit.
Yeah, well, since Fred's in the room.
Yeah. Sorry, Fred.
Well, I don't like to talk. So Chris is our chairperson for the local management. So Shelley attended one of the meetings. Shelley and Chris shared about the food bank resource hub, I think is what's official, not official, but that's the terminology choosing. Very similar to, I went down to, where did I go? Where was I?
Howard County.
Howard County, yes. So I think all three of us have been to Howard County to
Yep.
look at different times. And it's different. It's just a different concept. So, Chris, at least to an extent, people come in and they do get food, but there's other options that are available for them. And so they do have actually a farming community, people down there who are donating, or I don't know if they buy food or they donate, and it's kind of give and take down there in Howard County. And so they bring in community members. There's not all this, like, we're going to help, but we're going to have ulterior motives to help. Type of different things, which sometimes can happen, I think, in smaller communities. So we want to make sure from the very beginning that everybody's in it for the right reasons, and not just to then branch off and do their own thing after this gets up and running. Because we want to have constant, I think, participation from all the people who have said, in meetings, hey, I love it. It sounds great. Let's continue to do it. Let's continue to see what's going to happen and get things moving. So Shelley and Chris presented this idea in the local management. We had some money that we call community support funding. We have a housing feasibility study that was kind of related to this in a way, because people who are unstably housed typically have issues with obtaining appropriate nutrition and access to healthcare, all that other stuff that's been mentioned, such as you mentioned with the Baltimore location. Yeah, transportation and all that, education, all that type of stuff. Kids going to school dirty or not having clothes to wear. So will this one be the same? Maybe not to that extent, but there could be some similar components, whether it involves food prep, education components. We talked about IDs potentially to having like a resource hub where we'll have MVA maybe be there. Instead of having 1 day a week or 1 day a year, it might be one time a month or once every 2
For like
months.
vital documents.
Yeah, social security cards and picture IDs could be taken, that stuff. And then you learn how to cook. And you can do different type of initiatives there other than just coming and picking up a box or a bag of food. Yeah, different things like that. And there could be outreach workers that are there from either the health department, community action, or other locations. And so the LMB said, you know what, we like it. How much money do we have available? So Shelley said, we'll take it all. And so the funny thing was, I think it was like a humorous thing to begin with.
Yeah.
And people, I thought Shelley was being like, yeah, I want it all.
Yeah.
And so
Sounds like
there had to be kind of a backtrack a little bit and said, okay, now how much do we have left? And someone else said, let's split it up and give it to some other entities as well. So that's how the LMD got involved. And plus we've been involved with some other things with just stuff in general in the community that's doesn't get a lot of money sometimes, but just needs a little bit of push every now and then to get some more community investment and involvement. And when you have community action involved, and when you have the school system involved, when you have the health department involved, there is a likelihood in county government as well. There's a likelihood that things will be more than just a talk. And we're just going to put on a show for a couple months talking about this. We're going to put some action into it. And so now there's a location. There's going to be some other things coming in with some other grants. Shelley's been doing a great job with getting some other resources to come into the community. Chris and his people at Community Action are working together. You know, really, we're hoping that the farming community stays actively involved and for the right reasons and for the right purposes to help yourselves and also help the community and still keep everything up and running, working together. We're not going to, there's no intent to eliminate the farmers market type of stuff in the parking lot. There's no intent to eliminate anything that's already going. We just want to have people invested more and to see, you know, we know there's a limited growing season. Shelley mentioned that in the first meeting we had in this room. And so who are the vegetable people in the county? Are there any fruit related people, not mental fruit, but like edible fruits, you know, that type of stuff. And so, and then we have, is there a beef? Do we have beef cattle farmers in the community? Poultry, including chicken and eggs, you know, the kind you eat, that type of stuff. And so to bring all of those together to then help with the food bank would be fantastic. And so there's a couple different entities, though, I think that you're involved with, right? It's the Appalachian Farm and Food Alliance or something. And that's a private nonprofit, correct? And then what's the other?
It's Western Maryland Food Council.
So those are two separate, but they're kind of the same.
Yes, they have a tie together. Yes.
All right. It's a very tight, it's like a big, it's not a big, it's a little bow because it's about the same people, right? So when you tie it together, so that's where we want to make sure that both of those entities are involved in this actively. And if there's issues, like if there's concerns about what's really happening, then we'll be, you know, I think people will be glad. I'm not really the spokesperson, but sometimes I'm asked to talk because I'm not as conservative as John and I'm not as nice as Chris. So if I have a question, I'll just ask it and say, okay, so tell me what your fears are. What are you concerned about happening? What are you afraid of losing? Because when it comes down to it, people are afraid of losing what they think they have, even though they may really not have anything to lose. And so there's more to that you can offer than you can really lose when you're getting a group of people invested in something like this. And so it's new, it's strange, it's been talked about kind of casually for years about a food bank in Garrett County. And we can blame Community Action because Chris's predecessor was not a fan of a food bank in any way. Because there was well, I can say it, and I said it to him as well. But the problem is there was always this about how do we get the food here? Who do we work with? Do we have to work from Hagerstown only to get our food up here? Why? Why can't we have something in Garrett County to work with Garrett County people and not depend on the eastern part of the state for everything and just get these leftovers from a food bank?
Right.
Or go to Cumberland, where we used to have to go to, I think is where we got food from before. And, you know, so that's what we're hoping to get local farmers. Shelley's done a great job over the past couple of years bringing farming community back in. Really, it's great to have you consistently involved in meetings. Shelley had to withdraw from the Farm and Food Alliance because
Well, I chose to.
Well, okay. I didn't know if it was a chose or had to, but so no more involved in that, but actively engaged in inviting the group to meetings. And so if there are concerns or fears about anything, let us know what they are. Well, not us. I should let people know what the concerns are so they can be addressed. If you have people coming to you saying, Willie, what's going on?
Right. So where are we now? MPC has committed to have a community health worker there 3 days a week. I know that we have several grants that we have code applied for. I think that really right now the three leads on this, or should I say the four, because John kind of comes in too, ebbs and flows. John ebbs and flows. but it's really been Chris, Shelley, and myself. We came together with John, had a meeting on site. We came up with a name. You'd like to share that?
Yeah. 360 Access Hub.
Yeah, because it's located on 360 Liberty and it's 360 a person, right? We're helping improve not just access to food, but putting together a sustainability plan to get people to thrive, and that's the ultimate goal. So, like I said, we have several grants that we've applied for. Some of which is to build infrastructure. We've actually I have personal partners like America's Hauling for Hope, which Clint. He sits on the Western Maryland Food Council. So MPC bought him a second truck. He had a very viable operation in Washington County. We bought him a second truck to do food deliveries for us in Allegheny. He is committed to bringing food sourced from the Western Maryland Food Bank for the Staples and bring them up to the pantry. One of the grants that we wrote together actually has some capital in there for a refrigerated truck, which would be a huge, 20-foot truck or something like this, 10-foot truck, whatever, that could go down, source staples. Our intent is to try to source as much as we can locally. And that's kind of the grants that have been written. And my understanding is at that point, I don't know if it's community action or the health department will put out an RFP. Is that what we have been talking about?
Yeah, so in addition to the funds Lorena has, I have a few different grants that I've spoken about. I think you guys want to both of you, right?
Yeah.
So you got some money from Care First, we got some money from Care First, and always the intent is to support and invest in our local community. And so we're working internally at the health department to come up with a request or quote. I believe you also spoke to Jennifer Hare about it. Yeah. And so she let you know that process is being kind of developed. It's the first time that the state has allowed us to purchase food in this way. So there isn't a template for it. And so we're kind of doing it out by scratch with our procurement officer. So as soon as we get that up and running, that will be published, and then it'll be available for any farmer to be able to basically put in what they have, and then I'll be able to procure food directly from farms for all the different projects, not just the 360 Access Hub.
And we also have money that has been put in through this grant funding as well. And some of it is through the money that was donated through MPC is around retrofitting the area, because the way that it sits right now, we would need to bring in some cold storage and refrigeration in order to be able to maintain the produce or the meats and everything that was being procured. Additionally, there is a kitchen that needs to be a little rehab and resurfaced because it's wood and so it won't pass code. So there's work that needs to be done. I think we're targeting mid-May to be able to go live with at least starting the mini infrastructure of doing deliveries to the MPC members. Right? But it's going to take a while to do all of this. This isn't going to happen overnight. I don't know if you have anything else, Chris, that you want to add, or John.
I guess the only thing that I would say, we have had an architect come in and look at it. She's working on some plans, and the building needs a lot of work. We need a new roof, which is hopefully I'm going to find out about some funding for that tomorrow. But anyway, it should be a great place for the community. The architect has access to a business that has a lot of coolers and freezers and whatnot, who she thinks will make them available to us. So it just seems like everything's starting to fall in place to make this a reality, and as much local healthy food as we can have, the better. I don't want to be a food bank that has limitless boxes of mac and cheese on the shelves. I want people to be able to come and eat healthy food, and because what we put in our bodies is like the gas we put in cars, the quality of it makes it run better. So I'm very, very excited to have the growing community at the table.
So that kind of gives you a lay of the land.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Yeah, I guess, do you guys have a thought about, like, will there be a board set up for the food bank at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that's hard right now, and Lorena has updated us, I'll just put it that way, at the food council meeting, so we appreciate that as to, kind of things that are going on. And I realize this is like early stages, but I think, some way for everybody to engage is very important. I figured you all had a plan, but
Yeah, we actually, Chris has done a fantastic job of pulling together a charter, I would say. I mean, I think we've all contributed to it. But yeah, I think there is a plan to have the advisory board. We've actually talked about representation from different elements, including education, including community members, including members that we serve. Maybe you can talk a little bit about March 28th. Yeah.
That's good. March 28th, we will, I think you guys heard about that. So that's an invitation for people who are utilizing our resource hub to come and share their ideas, talk about what they actually need, what they want, and the services that they need. And we're hoping to be able to really connect with people at that particular event. And we want people with lived experience on the board. We don't want it to just be filled with our agency people. We just kind of see everybody at each meeting, right? When we kind of have this circuit. And so we really want this to be different. And it's a more than food model, which is an evidence-based model that highlights dignity, and it highlights client choice, and it highlights meeting people where they are, instead of us trying to sit in a room and decide what people need. They help build it. So
sounds good.
yeah.
Yeah, they've done a similar model out in Baltimore County, and matter of fact, we're going on a field trip soon to see one of our, but it's a choice pantry, and it's actually amazing to see people engage and the information that's available so that people understand about healthy eating. I think in the future we've talked about, holding cooking demos there and teaching people basic cooking skills, because as Melissa knows, we had our up our game, whatever event, cooking demo in Allegheny. Many people have absolutely no idea how to even basically cut meat, let alone prep things.
Oh, and you guys have, submitted videos through past funding for us to be able to help with education. Of course, it's a pillar at the University of Maryland Extension to teach people how to cook and hold those classes. You guys have, I know that one of the people retired, Kristen, that was there forever and ever. Do you have her position filled yet?
Well, no, I think they're interviewing next week is when they're interviewing. So
We'll definitely get with that person.
yeah, it's going to be probably, I would say, May. Our system runs so slow when it comes to the hiring side of things. And that person really has, they work through a federal grant, the SNAP Bakery, and there's different sectors of that. And I'll be quite honest, I don't understand all that. But they will have some ability to help. And there may be other sectors of that grant that we haven't been focusing on here. Because I know down in like Allegheny County, there's a person there that does, the person that's here had done mostly work with the school system. It had to be one of the schools that had the pre-introduced lunch numbers at a certain level and all that kind of good stuff. But in Allegheny County, they have an additional person that works a lot more with people in the community, whether they're low income or elderly or whatever. So I think, it's one discussion to have. I don't know why that person is in Allegheny and there's not one here in Maryland. I don't know. Is there a possibility? I don't know. But once the new person comes on board, of course, Jennifer Belenjeski is our area extension director, so she would have a much better idea of what's going on. She was formerly in the family consumer science side of our organization, so she would know more and could tell us what's going on. And that person in Allegheny may be able to come up and do some work here. I know that person has been up here and done some things. And we also have, I was just thinking, made a note there, what y'all were talking about, the driver's license and stuff like that. It triggered me to think Jesse Ketterman, who is also with Extension Family Consumer Science, he does mostly financial management work with people. And I'm sure he would be interested in somehow getting involved. I just saw their newsletter had him featured helping somebody get their driver's license, a picture of him down at MBA in Cumberland. So that triggered me to think about that. But he does a lot of like budgeting and things like that with, you know, folks that are struggling. So I'm sure he would be happy to, you know, be engaged with something. So,
You know, we've got some partners with the cash campaign. I know you guys got some financial literacy stuff, and our social workers and community health workers are also trained in financial literacy. So, I mean, any support I think is going to be welcome. You know, I mean, this is a community problem, right? And we want to see the community thrive. So how do we rally around? And I think that's why, you know, getting brilliance that Shelley's brought to the table with, hey, let's put this all in one place.
Right.
Yeah. So what other questions you got for us?
Well, I don't know if I have any other questions, but I mean, I think some comments would be that, you know, again, the Western Maryland Food Councils, yes, how they differ. Could give you that quick, although some of you've been pretty involved with that. But the Food Council is where we really see engagement with people, collaboration with people, because it's the Western Maryland, so it's Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington, but on a quarterly basis, the council meets, of course, and on a quarterly basis, the local food council meets. And that's really, we call it work group, but that's really where, you know, people here locally have a chance to bring in ideas and talk and do those kind of things. So I think that's an important thing. And, you know, maybe at a meeting, one of our next meetings coming up, maybe we can get Chris or Shelley or somebody to come and talk more specifically about the food council. Just tell the things you told here today. I think everybody in our council would like to hear that. So the council has like 7 members of each in each county. And then, but the meetings are all open to the public. So we try to encourage people that are, you know, just generally interested in food system things to come to those meetings. But the real work, of course, happens at the local level. And yeah, I don't think by any means the Food Council is interested in, you know, being a, you know, taking over the food bank or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's just, we just want to be doing the part that we can play, you know, whatever that means. And, you know, we try to
Do you have some ideas on what part you believe that the Food Council could play?
Well, you know, because I'm not the executive director of the Food Council, I just serve as the chair. And that just means I try to keep, you know, the meetings going and people engaged as best as possible. We don't have an executive director and things like that. So we don't really have things mapped out nearly as well as probably we could or should. If we were Montgomery County Food Council and we have 6 or 8
Yeah, that's
employees.
incredible.
Yeah, that's a whole different story, but that's not the story we have. The story we have is that we're volunteers that work for other agencies that try to bring people together, collaborate on activities, and, you know, and not just to, for an example, and back in like September, October, one of the community school teachers came to the Garrett County work group and said, you know, she just said, we're seeing a need for food access for families in each of our schools. And so she came then to the work group meeting and we talked about it there. And so those people there sit around and talked about it and said, okay, what can we do? So we ended up doing a food drive and having food given out Christmas time. And that has just kind of carried over. They've applied now for a USDA farmers grant, just applied for a community trust grant. We're meeting with Christian Crossings next week to talk about that for a possible summer food box program for their families specifically. So, I mean, I think that's the way the Food Council has worked. Whether it's great, whether it's not great, whether it's the way it should or shouldn't, I don't know. But that's the way it's worked. You know?
I just wasn't sure if you had like specific ideas or a vision that you you saw that, you know, you could potentially support. I mean, I think everybody's pretty open to
Yeah.
having people come to the table with ideas.
Well, and I see our strength for the food bank. I mean, there's been talk about local foods, which I very much appreciate. I see we can play a role there.
Mhm.
You know, and it goes, you know, maybe with the food council, we have maybe one or two farmers there, but we have groups behind that then can work that could, you know, support that. I think it would be good to have some thoughtfulness to local foods. Somebody once told me in a meeting, they said, "Oh, local food's easy. Everybody wants that." And that's been my mantra of how stupid people think about some things, because it's like local foods is one of the hardest things you can do. I mean, we're seasonal, that's been mentioned here already. Farmers have really struggled with planting. I mean, you know, we've worked with farmers for 15 years, carrot growers, trying to make sure that they do planning so that every week we can have lettuce to be sold, tomatoes to be sold, and things like that. And the food access work is no different. I mean, I think the person that thinks the farmers will give you what they have left over is really not very wise, you know, because there may not be anything left over. I mean, this year was a drought. I mean, we struggled big time to cover customers with carrot growers. And so farmers had little to nothing left, you know. So what does that mean for a food access program? Well, it means you might not get nothing. I think it can be very thoughtful. Doesn't have to be the highest price, but you have to start thinking, you know, in like October, November. Then there's another round of thinking that needs to happen in January, February with farmers to get them to understand what possibilities exist. And I know we're all in the grant-driven world, and grants have no idea what the farm schedule runs on. I mean, it makes me really angry sometimes when I see a grant come out that says, "Oh, you can apply for this in March, and we're going to let you know in June, and we want stuff done in August." It's like, that's not the schedule we work on. You know, it's just way off. Or somebody will call me and say, "Oh, we want local foods. We want to do that in March." And it's like, sorry, there's nothing growing here in March. So, I mean, I think one of the roles we can play for the food bank is, you know, if there's interest, and I think right now, there's still funding out there. What's going to happen the next 2, 3, 5 years? I don't know either, but we can play a role in helping with, you know, I think securing some funding. I mean, I had a conversation with the Assistant Secretary of Ag last week about the LFPA program, which is the USDA's local food promotion, local food, whatever it is, that provides each state with a certain amount of money to purchase local food. And the state's gotten that money for a couple different rounds. And that money has went to both the Maryland Food Bank and the Capital Food Bank, is where it's went. And we've had about 5 or 6 discussions with the Maryland Food Bank and have went nowhere. Lorena knows this because she's heard me say.
I will be meeting with them in about a week and a half
Yeah.
in person at their request.
I'm about done meeting with them.
So,
I mean,
we are meeting with them.
yeah. No, I think
At their request.
Yeah.
And ultimately I agree with you, and you know, I have pretty strong feelings.
Yeah.
I've taken Ruthie, you know, and many of them, and had questions as why they're not sourcing things locally.
Yeah.
And please know that this is not just here at Garrett. Farmer Chippy in Baltimore City sat with me in a room and took them to task, you know, for the same thing. I'm hearing this in Hagerstown. I'm hearing this all over the place. Is they're not supporting local farms and sourcing things locally,
Right.
You know, and so that money comes to Maryland, it should stay in Maryland. It shouldn't go to other states
Right.
to procure.
Yeah. And I mean, the conversation, Melissa and I was pretty hard on Secretary of Ag that was up here last summer and said, you know, some of this funding should come somehow to Western Maryland. So when the new funding was announced, like last October, you know, we sent emails and said, look, don't forget that we've had this discussion that somehow you all need to figure out, because that money flows into the Department of Ag, is where it flows into. And then they they get the RFP, and then they submit their funding proposal, I guess. And so they listened, and we had a quick meeting with them the other day. And they're planning to have part of that funding flow to the Western Maryland Food Bank. That's where it's planning to be flowed to. You know, it's not as good as it could come to Garrett County, but I think at this point we're in a situation where it's not up and running, so it's hard for them to have said.
They did say it would support the farmers that are only in Garrett and Allegheny County.
That's perfect.
So, I mean, that was all part of a conversation. And I think that's where the food council could come into play, because we're out there in the farming community and actually seeing who their buyers are, where their produce is going. And then we petitioned the food bank relentlessly to no avail. I have been there in person. I've met with them in person. And we just could not make ends meet whenever it come down to the end of the day. So that when the Secretary of Ag was up here for the day, we took the opportunity to highlight, here is our issue, and this is what we're fighting for, and this is what we need to happen, and helped him to understand what was actually happening, because they were under the impression that those funds were being distributed all across the state. And when we started highlighting that we have not seen 1 ounce of dollars from that food bank up in this area, it was a red flag for them. We followed up with letters, and then they followed up with, yes, we are providing funding to Garrett and Allegheny County for the farmers to put food into the food bank. So that was a win.
To put food into what food bank? The Maryland Food Bank?
Well, it's going to be the Western
Maryland
Maryland
Food Bank.
So
Oh, okay,
they
that's
take
fine.
that big pool.
Sure. Right.
And most of it goes to the Maryland Food
Yep.
Bank, a chunk to the capital. And now this year they're saying they're going to send a chunk to Western Maryland. We're not going to see any of it until 26.
Right, but as they should. I mean, the Western Maryland, so Amy Moyer is a great partner of ours. I mean, that's actually, yeah, that's where we do the distribution. And that's why we bought the truck, is so that Clint could get his food from there, and then it gets distributed. MPC is giving up, paying per member per month
Right.
for the members that they serve that having qualified in the program that we're doing around food distribution. We also gave them 160,000, as you know, to fix their roof last year, in collaboration with UPMC, because that's foundational money that MPC gives back, to the community. So we have a very strong relationship. So ecstatic that money's going there, and ultimately, I will continue to push and do what I can. And, they're coming rogue to the meeting, because it was like, okay, I'm bringing my friends, and I think they got a little nervous when I said I might bring more friends, and they're like, no more, so they're very interested in what we're doing in Garrett, with this food bank. And so, my hope is that they will come to be partners at the table and actually take this seriously moving forward, because we've hit them from the Western Maryland Food, Council. They've hit them, like Baltimore City's hit them, they're with Baltimore County now. So they're going to have to figure out how they make the priority of the community the centerpiece and not their own personal priority.
And it would be, I mean, when I say the money's going to flow to Western Maryland Food, or to the Western Maryland Food Bank, doesn't necessarily mean the produce has to go there.
Right.
I mean, the thing that I have been very adamant about with the people at the Maryland Food Bank is that there's absolutely no reason to drive a truck from here to Hagerstown or to Baltimore, deliver food, only to have food come back to Western Maryland. All you do is degrade the quality, and you can drive up costs. So again, even working with Western Maryland Food Council or Western Maryland Food Bank, there's no reason that pot of money, if the feed is in Garrett County, however it is, whether it's meant for pop-up markets or box giveaways or at the food bank, the new food bank, the 360 food bank, that food can go from Garrett County to stay here in Garrett County, and Amy's pot of money can just pay for it, and it's going to take working with her, working with you guys at the food bank, working with the farmers. I mean, the farmers, the hard thing with the farmers is that they're not willing to produce what they don't have sale for. And I'm kind of proud of that, to be honest with you, because for many, many years, we beat on the farmers saying, don't grow something unless you know where you're going to sell it. Don't go out here and plant 3 acres of broccoli and not have a clue where it's going to be sold. And so at this point, you know, people are like, okay, so tell me where I could sell it, you know, tell me where I could get, I don't want to say get rid of it because that's means a whole different thing to different people. But tell us where we can, you know, sell it, market it, whatever. And
A clarifying question for you. When you talk about farmers,
yeah,
are you talking about Garrett growers or are you talking about the whole ecosystem?
well, so I work for the University of Maryland Extension, which means that I work across the whole county with all farmers. Now, it is true, I do a lot of work with Garrett growers, which we started that organization about 15 years ago. There's currently about 6 really active members. We started with about 12. Fortunately, about 5 or 6 of them have retired. And we aren't getting a lot of people that are interested in joining. But in 2023, I haven't looked at the numbers yet for 24. Garrett growers marketed for 21 different entities here in Garrett County. So way beyond the membership, so to speak. People don't have to become a member in order to market through Garrett growers. We often work with members or farmers that are not members. But outside of that, there are other vegetable producers. There's an Amish group up in the northern end of the county that sells produce mostly through the Countryside Produce Auction, which is a couple miles across the line in Pennsylvania Springs. You know, very good group of growers. I work with them all the time on production issues and not so much on marketing. They pretty much take care of their own business there as far as the auction is concerned. So yeah, I think it's more than Garrett growers. It's not just Garrett growers. I mean, all of our information that we put out to farmers goes out to all the farmers, and through we have an electronic newsletter, put out a mailed newsletter a couple times a year that goes out to about 500%. So yeah, I mean,
Do you personally, like, I guess, do you personally profit from Garrett growers? Like, are you a grower for Garrett growers?
so my son is a member. Well, actually, you know, both of my sons were founding members of Garrett growers. So what they have a business they run. Their AAL Produce, which stands for Arab Illegal Lands. And so do I personally profit? I absolutely not. But do they sell stuff through there and do they make a profit? Well, I sure hope so. If they don't, we should be out of that business. That's for sure. You know, I think the business is run very fair. It's run by 5 board members every year. We get elected to a board, and those board members make the decisions about, you know, who to hire, because we have a coordinator that's hired, and the person that's hired makes decisions about who sells what and where it gets sold to and all this stuff. We're in the process right now of upgrading some software.
Just so everybody understands, first of all, yeah, we're probably down to 6 main paid members of Garrett Growers Cooperative, but like Willie said,
What do you mean paid members?
well, they buy into like an interest, what is it?
It's a cooperative, so
It's like $100, $200, $200 if you want to become an actual cooperative member, so you buy the interest of. But if any farmer comes to Willie and says, "Hey Willie, I have 50 pounds of onions that I can't get rid of. I need them to go, sort of go bad." Willie's on the phone trying to figure out where can we send these 50 pounds of onions. So will any of our restaurants take them? Will the food bank over in Preston County take them? $30 each buyer.
So it's a coordinated sell.
It is a coordinated.
Okay.
Well, I usually try to help out with that, but most of that stuff we route it to the coordinator.
Right.
She's
Yeah.
actually in contact with the customers.
Right. But Willie serves as the liaison pretty much because farmers know he's there to support them. So they're calling him if they have this excess and are going to have something go bad. Who do I call? I'm gonna call Willie. So Willie, and then Willie's like, okay, I'll put it out with our person and allow her to see if we can get rid of them in any way, shape, or form.
So what's your role and how is it different? And how did it play in your professional role in all of this?
So my professional role, I deal with a lot of farmers in marketing and how they want to start businesses up. I work heavily with the Western Maryland Food Bank. I work very closely with Garrett Growers, just because a lot of the farmers that I'm talking to, I see Garrett Growers as being beneficial to them. It provides a service. They don't have to leave their farm. And a lot of farmers simply don't want to leave their farm. And whenever they have produce, say, well, if you have extra that you don't get rid of or whatever, if you're planning surplus, if you want to expand, get a hold of someone at Garrett Growers. You know, they're an excellent entity to try to source your produce through. Now there's some farmers out there that just want to go about it their own, like the northern farmers. They send pretty much the whole bulk of their produce through the produce auction. And that's what they want to do. That's what they're comfortable with. And they make profit with that. Some weeks they get exceptional price. Other weeks they get very low price. But they're willing to take that risk because at the end of the day, I think they have that median that they need to have to make a profit for their farm. And then using Levi as the example, Levi's just not selling to Garrett Growers. Levi's out there and he is at every market that we have. He's at the Alleghenies farmers markets. He's out there trying to get other ways to sell his produce. He's wanting to make it a full-time, business for him and his family. So whenever Levi's out there and he has this produce and he calls our coordinator and he says, okay, I have 50 pounds of tomatoes this week. And then Charles Berry calls and says, I also have 50 pounds of tomatoes this week. And then Philip Shaw calls and says, I have 50 pounds of tomatoes this week. Our coordinator will look at that and she says, okay, I have orders for 120 pounds. And she basically just will go down and divide it evenly. It's not, she doesn't play favorites with any grower over the other.
At a set price though.
At a set price. Everything's at a set price, but members know exactly where they need to have, where the prices are and what they're going to be getting for their produce.
Yeah, the co-op doesn't buy any.
No.
The
Just
co-op
the mediator.
markets, yeah.
Right.
The farmers let the coordinator know. And really, I mean, one issue we've had over the last few years is just people letting her know. And it's sometimes hard because many of our farmers work with farmers market where they're getting a little bit better price there. And so they want to hold as much as they can for the farmers market. And this, to play this into the food bank, this is where, I think it would be really good to sit down and talk about some of the pricing because, I mean, there's all kinds of pricing out there. There's farmers market CSA kind of prices that are high per pound, per unit, whatever. Over the years with Garrett Growers, we've developed, more wholesale marketing. But we're still on the high end of the wholesale. I mean, we're going directly from the farmer to the restaurant or to the grocery store or to the customer. So we're not at the wholesale level that if we were selling to some, chain restaurant, chain grocery store where it went to a distributor and a wholesaler and then back around, because those farmers are getting 25, 30% on the dollar of retail. Our farmers are getting 80% of what goes out the door through Garrett Growers. So where the food bank, that's what we kind of have to think about is like what kind of pricing makes sense to both the farmer and to the food bank. Because obviously if the price is too high, the food bank can't afford to buy it, or it feels like, oh, that's too high for us to take our dollars, which are precious, and put toward this produce. You might be able to call up Cisco and say, hey, send me 3 boxes cheaper. So we don't want that. On the other hand, we don't want the price set so cheaply that the farmers say, well, I'm not going to go for that.
Sure.
And that's what happened. One of the things happened last year with the food bank. I mean, I took to Garrett Growers. I said, look, here's the sheet she sent me. Amy sent me this sheet. Amy Crowley sent me this sheet. Said, here's what we're paying for stuff. And I just basically sent her an email back and said, there's nobody's going to produce for that because these prices are below wholesale. Now, what happens on the Eastern Shore, and I think it doesn't happen near as much as it used to, is that, somebody backs out on an order or, there's some overproduction and some farmers might be very happy to send truckload of cucumbers because they didn't have anywhere else to go. That doesn't happen here. I mean, it might be a box of cucumbers here and there.
Yeah, and I think, and keeping honest here, that I think part of the thought is, so doing what I do, right? One of the things that we've been doing is pulling a survey of what produce people want, or what people are comfortable eating. And we've seen things like eggplants or bok choy brought to a food bank and then they get thrown away because people don't know what to do with it. So part, I think, of the thought, and this has really been through the learnings with Clint and the work that they've been doing, is how do you source things that aren't going to get wasted, and ensuring that if you put out an RFP, you put out, this is what we need, right? And that the farmers can plan accordingly because they know that they're going to get that, and this is the fee that'll be paid for it, as opposed to, well, here's a bucket of what we have,
And I know what you're talking about, and I've listened to Clint and you guys talk about that, and in my mind, I kind of think through, if you make this a selective type of thing, first of all, the food's going to cost. I mean, that's the bottom line. And that may
we're
not
actually
happen-
seeing a savings.
That may
as a
not
result.
happen in dry goods.
Yeah.
But it is going to happen in local produce, because if so 2 years ago, we did pop-up markets, right? I can tell you that if it wouldn't been for the grant, we lost a lot of money in those pop-up markets, because we load up the truck, take it to Friendsville, and let people come up, and they paid for it. So this wasn't even a giveaway, but they took and paid for what they wanted to. What do you do with what's left over? Pretty much you throw it away, except for, if it's potatoes, it can come back. But if it's lettuce and it's tomatoes, a lot of that stuff gets wasted.
Was that ordered or was it donated?
No. This was like a pop-up market. This was like
They just showed up and
So-
they had everything.
Yes, yeah. So again, that's not exactly the same model. You're talking about let them order it. But on the other hand, if you say it's just a matter of space and time, because you say, okay, well, we're going to order it this week. And so we have what we have on farms each week, right? It's not like we say, okay, these are tennis shoes or these are dry goods. We'll just buy 12 more boxes of cereal, you don't do that. You have what you have. So if you're going to let them order off of this menu, and let's say all the eggplants are left over and thrown away, it's the same deal. The same as deal as whether the person threw the eggplant away or whether we threw the eggplant away. It's a little better because if the farmer still has the eggplant, we might be able to take it to the auction or someplace like that, and sell it, assuming it's not like, too bright, too mature or whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, some of the creative stuff that we've done, like in Washington County, is we have hydroponic units at the schools. The kids are growing hydroponics, donating it to the pantry. Very little cost. There's no cost in that, right? And it's a great education for the kids.
Sure.
Clint has now a greenhouse because he's growing stuff here. He's going to be growing stuff year round to supplement the boxes. I mean, I think this is where we're looking at different opportunities. And I say we, the collective we, not just me. I'm the smaller player in here, but ultimately, I don't know, Shelley, if there's anything else that you want to ask, or well, Fred, you've been pretty quiet. I mean,
I think we're about at time.
yeah,
It's always helpful to continue understanding a little more of where the farmers are coming from and finding some kind of balance between, how we feed people affordably.
Well, and I think, the more engagement there is, the better understanding there is. And I mean, this is early on for the food bank. I totally understand that. It's hard there's a lot of things that need planned, a lot of things need thought out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think the local foods would be an issue that comes near the top at this point. It's one of those things that, okay, we're going to get to it eventually. And I'm very happy with that idea. And, whenever you get to that point, and again, just like, this LMPA grant money is coming through the Secretary of Ag. I think Melissa and I have a good relationship with them. There's another grant that's going to be out next week. It's the farm grant, which is what funded the Mount Laurel boxes last year. That's going to be out here in a couple of weeks for us to reapply for that. And sometimes there is restrictions on this stuff. I will share it with you that like M Farm requires that money, that food comes from certified partners. We have 6 of them right now in the county. Not saying more can't be certified, but that's what we have. So
Yeah, I have quite a few partners across Western Maryland as well.
Who certifies?
So they're certified through Maryland Department of Agriculture, and it's actually an extremely easy process.
So like an application.
Yeah. So
Yeah, the thing they have to have is they have to have a nutrient management plan, which by law, they're all required to have a nutrient management plan.
But who does that?
Well, our office writes nutrient management plans,
Your office.
being the extension office. Yeah, University of Maryland Extension. Now, some people get those privately written too. There's other options. There's not near the options here in Western Maryland for privately written plans, but we saw the need when this came out. Yeah, you don't want my whole spill of nutrient management because that'd be another hour. But we worked with the guys that we have certified now. None of them had a plan. I had one farmer had a plan before we worked with these 6 people. 5 additional people got certified. And more than happy to work with any additional people.
So a new farmer, well, not a farmer who wants to do this. How long does it take them to get everything they need?
It all depends upon their situation. That I mean, a plan can be written in less than a month.
And then it has to be approved by
Nobody.
So
This has to be written.
Oh, okay.
And then they just have, well, I guess the initial plan, like the certified farmer program, does have to be sent in to the state.
But
But
then there's little posts you see in the fields
no,
to have something on,
I don't know what those are, but no,
like for corn.
no,
Those are
that's all
varieties.
just varieties. of things. No, this is a program the state set up based on that whole thing where they're requiring state agencies to provide 20% local.
Oh,
And they set that up first. And then they said, well, these people from out of state are going to filter in the Maryland. Maryland is falling in their state, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and so they put this thing in place, a certified farmer program, and said, okay, we're going to give preference to these certified farmers. And the only thing they have to do is have their plan, which they have to have anyhow. But, I'm here to tell you, we have a lot of farmers that don't have a plan here in the state, in the county. And that's not my job to
do they
enforce.
have to have it to sell
No,
the produce? They don't.
no, only if it's a specific program like MFARM.
Okay.
That's the only time. That's the only thing so far that I'm aware of.
So how many farmers, is that the okay word to use?
Yeah.
How many farmers are there in here?
Well, if you look at the mass data, that says there's around 700.
But how many really?
Well, I said there's 700 people that have some kind of farm or farm
Okay.
income,
Right.
but we only probably have, the majority of the farmers in this county are producing something that can't be consumed in this county. That's the problem. So they're producing corn, they're producing soybeans, they're producing hay. So I don't think any of your people at the food bank want those products. And even when we look at the meat producers, majority of the beef that's raised in this county isn't finished beef. It's grass fed. It's feeder cow. So the guy has a cow. He raises a calf. He has a calf born on his farm in March. He keeps that calf on his farm until October, and it gets sold somewhere for somebody else to finish out. Now we have probably 24 or so guys that finish out some cattle to the point of market. Probably 99%, 90% of those leave the county as well, just because we only have a few small processors. So that's the huge problem is, there's a lot of talk about processing, but you have to understand too that the United States food system is based on large scale processing, and anything we do on a small scale drives the price out outside. So you get a big beef butcher here locally at a local meat shop, it's going to cost 3 times as much to process that beef as it would through a major processor. And
So the way we've gotten around some of this stuff is we're actually working with an organization that Hunters for the hungry or whatever. Yeah, you remember. So we're doing some supplementing. So after what we did, the cooking demo down in Allegheny, a couple of hunters showed up with 40 pounds of venison. And there are organizations like the Butcher Block here. They actually participate where you can take your kill, process it, and then they donate that out to the food bank. So there's a lot of supplementing that can be done.
And they do that because there's funding from where you're
It's a bill.
Well,
There's a bill,
it's a bill, and it's through, the NRCS.
and there's also private donations.
Right, and just to elaborate on that, for the community school partners, we were able to secure about 500 pounds of meat. 500 pounds of meat that was then distributed to the elementary school students. And that was a rapid turnaround. I mean, I let them know on a Wednesday, they put out an advertisement, and I'm saying them, Theaters Butcher Board, who also works with the farmers and hunters feeding hungry. And I got permission from farmers and hunters first, and then went through Butcher Block. They put out a plea to bring in deer, and they had 15 deer donated on a Saturday that all went to the program to feed the school children.
So about 2/3 of that got paid for by the farmers feeding the hungry, and the other part got paid for by yours. They just cover the cost of cost.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of the idea when we think about this food bank, is trying to find the balance. Like
Yeah.
Shelley was saying, is, giving people quality food and ensuring that it's affordable. Because otherwise we can't sustain this. This isn't a profit maker for anybody, right? This is
Right.
Feed,
Meat
the
is really
community.
a hard one. It really is a hard one because meat's expensive. Any meat's expensive, but then
And the quality that's coming from the Maryland Food Bank is not great.
I'm sure it's not.
And that's part of the reason why we have been exploring other partnerships around that. So,
But I can tell you that the problem with our local farmers and local that do meat is they're doing it on a very small scale.
when you
So,
say local, you just mean Garrett, though. You're not talking beyond Garrett.
I don't know. I mean, unless you're going to go deeper into Pennsylvania where there's large Pennsylvania farms like in Lancaster County, York County, and that region, possibly every place is pretty much like us, unfortunately, where, we're fortunate to have 2 USDA slaughter plants right now in this county. It's on a county in the state that has that, and maybe probably the whole region.
Right.
But at the same time, they're both very small. So just like the farmers, if you only raise and sell 20 beef animals a year, which that'd be probably our biggest one right now. One of our
Really?
biggest ones. That's going to sell finished animals.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make a majority of your money off those 20 animals. You can't go out there and sell beef for $3.99 a pound.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to be below their cost and turning them so little that it isn't worth their time. But you go to a large beef feedlot in the Midwest, the same margin would be very small because it's over thousands of head. And that's the whole problem. It's economies of scale. And I don't, I can't see a real good solution for local meats and food banks and even through Garrett growers. I mean, we don't deal with any meat right now for that very reason.
Oh,
I
okay. I
can't
didn't
offer-
realize you guys didn't do
I
that.
can't offer ground beef for $8 a pound.
Yeah.
To a restaurant, because that's what we have to charge.
Yeah.
Because the farmer wants $6 a pound, and we have to market it, we have to mess around extra because it's frozen.
Right.
It may not be those just numbers.
Sure.
It's like, how do you, they just aren't going to do it. So,
A lot of people think you get a cow butcher and you have this huge freezer full of meat, and it's so much, that cow has produced an enormous amount of meat. But whenever it comes down to it, you're probably looking at, I don't know, maybe,
40% retail.
yeah.
My
it's
grandparents
40.
were cattle farmers.
Well, yeah, like you're talking, I mean, we just got back ours and we got 200 pounds of ground beef and steaks and some roast. And so that's not a lot whenever you're trying to feed a mass
No,
of people. So it takes a lot of cattle to produce enough meat to.
Yeah, Mike Cook with Firefly Farms here in the county, he he did some sort of grant. I forget which one.
And, well, I don't know what the grant was, but it was for every Walmart.
Yeah, to do a cooperative of meat producers. And the idea was to try to take the lowest value cut, which is hamburger,
Mhm.
and sell that, as a quality
Mhm.
thing. And their pricing is still like $8, $9, $10 a pound in the retail side. And the only place you're going to sell that's down east. And if you do a really good job of marketing, things like that. And I mean, I'm sure they can sell it here a little bit cheaper, but it's just tough. I mean, I don't mean to go on.
No.
It's a subject that I
All
can
of the
talk about all day.
Well, I think we just wanted to answer your questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate that. And like I say, if there's ways to engage, I mean, I'm very happy with the Appalachian Food and Farm Alliance and the Western Maryland Food Council to keep the food bank engaged, giving updates, whatever the case may be. I know you didn't think the last meeting, Lorena, but whoever Shelley.
I was actually sitting right next to her.
We were,
With Chris, we were all in the same.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Yeah, I just showed up late. We ended up having a meeting specifically to talk about the food bank and I walked in late. We were at 201 Adler or 206 Adler, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I think, there may be 3 or 4 people at each one of those meetings that's never heard about it. There's
Yeah, for
different
sure.
people coming in and out of those meetings. I mean, for me, it seems like we say the same thing a lot of meetings, time after time, but I try to remember that there's new people sitting in the room, or maybe they've only engaged one time so far, so it's
Especially
important. that-
last meeting, there was a tremendous
Yeah,
amount
we had
of
a really good crowd.
new crowd that showed up online for the last meeting. So that was encouraging that there's new interest out there, revived interest, and there was good conversation clear across the board about different things.
Mhm.
Shelley was asking about Mr. Burkett's program that he has down at the school. So like that was a connection that would have never been made if we didn't have that meeting. So
yeah, same with the meeting we had here,
Yeah.
visioning session. I think
Yeah.
there's just need and people understand that. Want to be involved.
Well, I know everybody probably needs to go.
Yeah.
To the next meeting. But thank you all very, very much for taking the time today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
like I said, our door is always open, so please ask. So, we're asking this only because we want to know, need to know, and we can know. So,
And I'll give you an update of what happens with the food bank.
Yeah.
The Maryland Food Bank.
yeah, that'll be,
I don't know. I mean, I think right now they're a little nervous because we were able to set up this delivery of food infrastructure that really didn't include them,
Yeah.
through a health plan. And
well,
not
there's,
that we were trying to cut them out or anything, is I need a solution. I'm not going to sit around and wait and play politics. Like we're going to get stuff done, so.
well, and I just have a real frustration, to be quite honest with you, with the overhead they run through. I mean, when the CEO is making $300,000.
I sent you the 990.
Yeah, you sent me the 990, and it's not just the CEO.
I know. It's like $2 million in salaries alone.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm smart enough to run a food bank if I really wanted to, and I surely don't make nearly 300,000. So
I don't think anybody in this room makes 300K. So
maybe
maybe
five
Shelley.
we do,
No, I'm just kidding.
and it's like, I just don't get that. I mean, I know,
Fred's got a grin on his face.
I know you need,
285, right?
I know you need smart people and you need good people, but I don't know. We ran into this in West Virginia too, same attitude, same philosophy,
Whereabouts in
it's
the
not your food bank, which is the only food
Yeah.
bank in the state. Well,
No, I know. I'm about to have a conversation with them. We're trying to do some work. They're trying to help the mayor up in Terrell. We got a lot of issues going on over there.
well, you should put them in contact with United Way, and
That's my next phone call too.
because we've worked a lot with
Yeah.
United Way, Lewis.
But these guys right now, they don't, everything is private donation. That's
Yeah.
it. It's all that's running off of
Yeah.
in Terrell. So
They should be able to tap into that. Their United Way runs out of the old Ramada Inn in Morgantown, but it also runs out of the Preston County Shelter Workshop in Kingwood, which would be
right there.
12 miles away.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll be talking to Dan
they
later.
have food all the time. So they bring a lot of food. So,
Well, appreciate you guys.
yeah, same here. Appreciate it. So, hopefully, let us know. We'll go from there. All righty. Good seeing you.
Good luck with your car. If it's later tonight, I can take you home.
Oh, thank you.